this computer. So I figure what an auspicious and important time to learn about Simcha than today. Mishin Nichnas Adar Marvin b'Simcha. And this Shabbos is Shabbos of Baruch Adar. So for those who are here, you have the piece in front of you. For those who are online on Zoom, I'm going to pull the piece up so we could do it together. Let's see here. Okay, so this is a piece from the Slonimer Rebbe from the Nesiva Shalom. We actually did a piece, for those of you who remember last year, a different piece from the Nesiva Shalom, also on Simcha, a piece from his Purim Maimorim. This one actually comes from that's from you. This one actually comes from a different sefer, not his sefer on Chumash, but he has a different sefer about midos. And so this is an essay on Ivdu Hashem b'Simcha. It's a long essay. We're not going to do all of it, but we'll see how far we can get. Just a real foundation in Avodas Hashem. Because again, to achieve joy is a real Aveda. It is really, it's real work. And so how do we achieve that and why is it important? And then I want to do in the coming weeks, different work pieces on Purim to show how in the Yom Tov of Purim, we could actually experience, or we could learn how to experience true joy from the Yom Tov of Purim. There's a real connection there between the details of Yom Tov of Purim and achieving real Simcha. Okay. So that'll be the coming weeks. But let's just take a look at this piece here. Let's get my annotator here so we can follow along. Really just a beautiful and just a foundational piece in Avodas Hashem. So Ivdu Hashem b'Simcha, we should serve Hashem with joy. Zeh klal gadol b'Avodas Hashem u'b'mailas hatzadikim. He says this is a all-encompassing rule. An all-encompassing rule when it comes to Avodas Hashem. When it comes to serving Hashem. That it's incomparable. Our own Avodas Hashem, our approach to Avodas Hashem, our approach to mitzvahs, it's incomparable when we're in a state of joy and of simcha than when we're not, than when we're sad or depressed or dejected or unmotivated. It's the same action, but it's completely different when we do the action in a state of joy. And how much more so if not only we're not in a state of joy, but we're in a state of depression, we're in a state of marashcher, which is again just dejection, lack of motivation, Rahman al-Litzlan, because when we're in that state of dejection and depression, again, we're not talking about medical depression, that's biological depression, that's a medical condition, that's something else. We're just talking about when things are going difficult in life. When life's going difficultly and I'm having issues and pain and stress and anxiety, the mitzvahs that I do amidst that stress and that anxiety is obviously incomparable to the mitzvahs that I do when I'm in a state of joy. It says in the pasuk, Tachas asher lo avadatas Hashem elokecha b'simcha. This is fascinating because in the Teichacha, at the very end of the Teichacha, after all of the curses, it says, why do all these curses happen? Because you didn't serve Hashem with simcha. Meaning you served Hashem, but you didn't serve Hashem with simcha. Why is simcha so important? You did serve Hashem, says the pasuk. But but you didn't serve Hashem with simcha. You didn't serve Hashem with joy. And this is a critical component in Avodas Hashem. Why? Why is it not enough just to do the mitzvah? Who cares what mood I'm in? If the importance is to put on tefillin, who cares what mood I'm in when I'm putting on tefillin, or lighting Shabbos candles, or giving tzedakah? Why does it matter what mood I'm in? Why does it matter what my attitude is, as long as if I'm in a state of joy? Or if I'm not in a state of joy? Why does it matter as long as they do the action? But he says, no, it does matter. It does matter. Serving Hashem out of joy absolutely matters. Why? And look what he says, a beautiful point. Hu ka'esa eved einu neman. Because somebody who serves Hashem out of just that sense of habit or robotically, he says that is like an eved einu neman. It's like a servant who's not trustworthy. Hamamali pekudas adonai hamelech matei. He's doing the will of the king, but it's because he's forced to do it. It's not because he has any desire to do it or because he wants to do it. He's forced to do it. Kilu kafishedit. It's as if somebody external outside of him is forcing him to do it. Afilu tihi b'daikonas gadela. His aveda to the melech, even if he does it with absolute, even if he's scrupulous, and he does it with absolute detail. But if he does it out of a sense of being forced, if he does it and he doesn't want to be there, imagine your husband learns in yeshiva that he's supposed to have shalom bayis. And so he comes home and he spends 15 minutes with his wife because his Rabbi told him he has to have shalom bayis. And how do you have shalom bayis? To spend time with his wife. He doesn't want to spend time with his wife. He doesn't really want to be there. But he tells his wife, listen, I got 15 minutes. The Rabbi told me I have to have shalom bayis, so I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes with you. So, but clearly he doesn't want to be there. He's doing other things. His mind is elsewhere. At the end of the 15 minutes, he gets up, okay, shalom bayis, I'm leaving. How would that feel? That wouldn't feel very good. We wouldn't feel very appreciated or very desired or very wanted. And yet, when we think about it, how many of us show up to davening every day exactly like that? We tell Hashem, I don't really want to be here. I have to be here because I have to daven. I don't really want to be here. So we show up and we're there exactly the amount of time that we have to be there. And then we leave. We go. And while we're there, our mind is elsewhere. This is exactly what it is. He says that when we serve Hashem without simcha, without any joy, it's as if we're being forced to do it. And so even if we're doing it with scrupulousness and we're doing the misses with great detail and with great observance, but if our mind isn't in it, our heart's not in it, our passion's not in it, what is it? It's lacking so much value. We don't want to be there. We're forced to be here. We have to be here. I'm a Jew, so I have to do this, but this is not where I want to be. Avol ben melech ve'eved haneman. But a trusted servant is someone who he feels blessed and he's happy that he has the occasion to fulfill the desire of the king. Similarly, if I'm spending time with my spouse, not because I have to be there, because my Rabbi told me I have to have 15 minutes shown by, but I want to be there and I clearly desire to be there. And I clearly show through my actions that I desire to be together with my spouse and I desire to be here in this moment. It's a completely different experience. So similarly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kamaisha Omar David HaMelech, and as David HaMelech says, this is what we're shooting for. Sas anochi al imrasecha. Hey, I rejoice. I rejoice with your words. I rejoice with the words of Torah. Kameitzi shalom rav, like somebody who found a treasure. That's how we have to approach Torah. That's how we have to approach Yiddishkeit. I have the schus to be able to do a mitzvah, the schus of like finding a treasure. Umarana saba kadesha maslanim zuchus yaganalinu perush. And this is what the Slonimer Rebbe, he quotes from a previous Slonimer Rebbe. He said, we say on Rosh Hashanah, that's also from Rosh Hashanah, Sasa Nechim Resach. We say that before the shofar. But we have another thing that we say on Rosh Hashanah, Hayem Yamid B'Mishpat, Kol Yitzuri Elamim. Today is the day that all the creations stand in judgment. And we ask Hashem, Im Kavanim, Im Kavadim, if you're going to judge us like a child, or you're going to judge us like a servant, we don't know how you're going to judge us. But says the Slonimer Rebbe, this is exactly Im Kavanim, Im Kavadim. Hashem is judging us whether we are like children or whether we're like slaves to him. What is our heart? Shaham Mishpat, this is exactly what the Mishpat is. Shaham Mishpat hu, im avaydasam l'Hashem yizborei chaysim b'bechinas banim b'simcha v'tainim. What is Hashem judging us? If our aved is kabanim or kavadim, are we like children who are serving Hashem with joy, like the joy that I serve a loving parent with? Are we like servants who are doing this forced out of habit or because out of guilt or whatever? But kafiyah v'hechrech, and we're doing this because we're forced to do it. This is what Hashem is judging us on. Im kavanim, im kavadim. What is our approach to mitzvahs? And so there comes a time, certain times out of the year, where we take a step back and we really have to think about and meditate and contemplate, what is my approach? And Mishin Nichnas Adar, Marben B'Simcha, Adar is one of those times. And since this Shabbos is Shabbos Mevorchim Adar, this is a perfect time to take a step back and reevaluate my approach in life, my approach in mitzvahs. Cain b'maimer akasav, and so too as it says in the pasuk, Sameach bachar b'yalutecha, rejoice, young man, in your in the fact that you were born. V'da ki al kol ela yavicha elokim b'mishpat, and know for all these things Hashem will bring you to mishpat. And so the perush is shal zed gufa, and this is the mishpat. If he's sameach bachar b'yalutecha, if you're rejoicing in your life, in your birth, im ha'isa sameach eloi yavicha elokim b'mishpat, whether you're rejoicing or not, whether you're living a life of simcha or not, that is what Hashem is judging. That is our judgment. Ubeber Avram maybe had the Isa b'shara kavanas, and the Ber Avram he brings from the shara kavanas, the zel shayna, and this is the lashon that he brings. Asur la'adam lihispalel meteich atzvoin, that we shouldn't daven in a state of depression, in a state of sadness. If you daven in a state of sadness, of dejection, and again, we're not talking about biological depression, that's a medical thing. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about our own mood, our own state of mind. When we approach to do a mitzvah, when we're davening, what is our state of mind? If we're davening just robotically, just habitually, without rejoicing, without realizing that my davening is my capacity, my ability, me, a finite, flawed creation, to be able to communicate, to be able to connect to my infinite creator. When I don't have that kavanah, I'm just going about it rotely and habitually, I'm unable, look at the words he says, I'm unable to be makabel, to receive the or elyon. When I am davening, when I am opening myself up to my creator, there's drawn down upon me powerful, incredible divine light and inspiration. But that the key to unlock that inspiration is my mindset. That's what's important during davening. My mindset, my heart, not just saying the words habitually and robotically, but actually opening myself up to receive that powerful light. Then davening becomes a real experience.
Stays at 1 o'clock.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just pause.
Okay, I got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Muted. There we go. Let me go back to the screen. Okay.
But I once heard that instead of saying I have to daven mincha, to just change and say I get to daven mincha.
It's just the attitude, exactly. Exactly.
Switch that one word.
Exactly. That's exactly right. See, this is one of the sort of downfalls, if you will, of organized religions. I mentioned this last week, is we become very focused on the rituals that we quote unquote have to do, that we're obligated to do. And the focus becomes much more ritualistic, and we forget about the heart, we forget about the mind, we forget about the joy. And so there comes certain times, as I mentioned, all of the Yom Tovim, I mentioned this before, they're like, we have to look at them, they're like well springs in the desert. And as we walk through the desert of life and we get exhausted and we get parched and we get thirsty, comes the Yom Tovim, and they're well springs of inspiration, but we have to drink from them. If we're traveling through the desert and we come to the wellspring and we just pass it by without drinking from it, we don't gain from that nourishment and from the incredible refreshing experience of drinking that water. Every Yom Tov is that experience. That's how we have to enter the Yom Tovim with. When we are going into the Yom Tov of Purim, into the Chodesh Adar, we have to have the proper mindset to draw from those well springs. And this is what Adar is. This is what Adar is meant to bring out from within us, this state of joy. So yes, that's a very beautiful eitzah. Not I have to daven, because that's how we have to think. I have to do the ritual. I'm obligated to do it. I get to daven. That's a wonderful experience. That's a wonderful way to approach it. Thank you, Shani. It's beautiful. So this is how our davening has to be in order to receive this Or Elyon HaNimshach Lo B'Shas HaTefillah. We're on the first page, the left-hand column, a few lines down, 3 lines down. V'tehei tfilasei b'simcha gedela v'yisera kekal ha'efsher. And then your tefillah is b'simcha. Then your tefillah is with joy, as much as it's possible to be. The kedimyon ha'eved ha'mashamish es Rabbi b'simcha yisera. And it's like the eved who when he approaches his master to serve him, he does it with a joy. It means so much more to the master. It means so much more to the Adar. She'im mishamshe ba'atzvos. Because if he's serving the king, but he's doing it clearly, depressed, dejected, sad, he doesn't want to be there. Avodah and messes the love. His Avodah is despised by the king. The king doesn't want that Avodah. It's like if your spouse has to spend time with you and they clearly don't want to be there. You guess what? You don't want them there either. It's not pleasant to have that experience when they don't want to be there. Similarly, when we serve Hashem, we need to be showing we want to be there. We have a passion in being there. It's not for Hashem, it's for us, because we will be, if we don't have that, we're lacking the brachas and the kedusha, the godliness that the mitzvahs are bringing down upon us. Bein be'eis hatfila, bein k'sha'eis mitzvah, mitzvahs. He says there's so much spirituality, Ruach HaKodesh, he says, that is dependent upon our mindset. Our minds are the keys that unlock such spirituality. So we could do the same mitzvah, but when we do it with a different mindset, it unlocks a completely different and much more powerful and potent kedusha when we're doing it, when we're learning, when we're davening, when we're doing a mitzvah, whatever it is we're doing. We don't appreciate how powerful our minds are spiritually and what our mindset unlocks. And he brings also from the Baal Priya Aretz that if a person wants to strengthen themselves generally in Avodas Hashem, the first place to start is Shiur to first your mind, your mood, your mindset. Start with joy before anything else in Avodas Hashem. It's interesting. Don't start with a mitzvah. Don't start with learning. Look what he says to start with. Start with joy. Start with your mindset. You know, it's such an important idea. I once heard, I think my wife and I were listening to this together. We once heard an educator. I think she's in high school. She runs a high school for girls. And she was talking about children who go off the path of Yiddishkeit and what their parents' approach should be. And she said, before you start lecturing your kids on Judaism, first make sure they're happy. Because there's a 3-step process. It's called happy, healthy, then religious. And if you don't have the first 2, you can't have the third either. It's much more difficult to have the third. So happiness is almost like a vessel or receptacle or the mindset in which religiosity can thrive. But if a person is not happy, if a child is unhappy, to force the religion upon them, it's not going to be sustainable at all. It'll only be sustainable if they're first happy and healthy. We have to focus on that. But the same thing really within ourselves as well. The religious observance is meant to be not simply not a yoke that is a burdensome yoke that I have to do, that I'm doing out of a sense of guilt, but for many of us, that's what it becomes. It's sort of a sense of I'm doing it out of a sense of guilt if I don't do it, or just habit. But it means so much more, not just to Hashem, which of course but to us and for us when we do it out of a different mindset. The ultimate results are completely different. The barachas that we receive based on our mindset are totally different. Happy, healthy, frum. We have to be happy. Happy is number 1. Okay. Now the question is, how do we obtain that? And that's what we're going to talk about, and in some of the coming shiurim as well, when we talk about Purim. Okay, so let's go into the next paragraph. The Isa Besvarim HaKodeshim, it says in the holy book, She'im ki simcha einu mitzvah mefresh b'Torah, notwithstanding the fact, this is a famous saying in Chabad Chassidus as well, notwithstanding the fact that there's no one of the 613 mitzvahs is not to be besimcha. It's fascinating. Even though Shem Simcha is in the Torah, but it's not one of the 613. However, it is like the underlying foundation of all 613. Ach meviahi l'kol mitzvahs. But simcha is what can bring you to all the other mitzvahs. The atzvus enu avera mefareshes, and depression, dejection, sadness isn't an explicit sin, but mevia l'kol averes, but it actually brings one. Expression in Chabad, amongst Chabad Chassidim, that along the same lines, that happiness isn't a mitzvah, but in a sense, it's more important than all the other mitzvahs. Similarly, sadness is not an avera, but in a way, it's worse than than all the averas, because it brings you sadness, depression, dejection, brings you to lack of motivation, brings you to lack of spiritual motivation. So the underlying mindset of sadness versus dejection, or sadness and dejection versus joy, I mean, is an absolute critical component in our own Avodas Hashem. And he's going to say, as we're going to see, this is, if we have time to get there, it's not like happiness is the cherry on top. I need to be observant, but happiness is good if I'm happy. If I'm not happy, it's not so good, but that's not what's important. We're going to see, no, that's not the case. Happiness is actually a critical component in Avodas Hashem. It's not just the cherry on top. It is critical, as we'll see. And it's one of our hardest things to do as a Jew, to be happy. Some of us, we have just such genetic trauma, Jews, that even when first of all, it's hard enough to be happy. It's hard to be happy when things are difficult in life. That we understand. But even when everything's going well in life, we're just waiting for the next difficulty because we're Jews, right? We're waiting for everything's going well now, but I don't want to jinx it, but because we're Jews, we're waiting for the next shoe to drop. We have such genetic trauma. Even though it might not even be our own personal experience, but being happy is a real Aveda. It takes real effort. It takes real work to be happy. We're working against all of our, like I said, all of our genetics. Huh?
Were other generations, is it something, like anxiety, depression is such a prevalent problem in our generation? This is a voda that we have nowadays that, our kids and it's just in the air. Was it like that?
Well, that's interesting. This is a very interesting question, because clearly, for those of us who are like me, Gen X, and then you have children who are Gen Z, and you see the anxiety did that not exist? We didn't have those words. We just didn't have those words. It's not that it didn't exist. We just didn't have the words, and we didn't talk about it. And we sort of suffered through life on our own without the proper mental health attention, et cetera. And that's why we're all these messed up Gen Z parents like we are. But so I don't think it's that I think it's the same. I just think we have more words for it now, and it's less stigmatized now, and it's more addressed now, which is, I think, a good thing, a positive thing.
The whole Hasidic movement was started out of a lack of joy in Avodas Hashem, sort of. Yeah. That piece was,
I think it's interesting. I think human nature is human nature. And I think that we've had the same nature for thousands of years. When the rabbis and the Talmud talk about human nature, and it's exactly the same as we are now, as we see that human nature is thousands of years old. So there are maybe, small changes here and there, but I think it's just that we more address it. But yeah, it's a good question.
People didn't, our parents' generation, or our grandparents' generation, they didn't have the time.
See, that's another thing. We were focusing on survival.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Less chance.
The focus was different. Self-actualization and self-fulfillment. We were focusing on surviving the previous generation. And like you said, even just putting food on the table was a struggle. When we have more free time, we're able to think about more things yeah. So, but again, the reality is that wherever it is, it's hard to be b'simcha. It's not an easy avodah. And for some people, it comes easier. But for some people, being b'simcha is difficult. It comes harder. It's real avodah. A lot of it is genetics and how we're raised and the environment that we're raised in. But for some people, experiencing real joy is a real avodas Hashem, just like anything else. And so that's what we have to strive for. So this is what Adar comes to remind us. It's not just enough to serve. we have to eat Hashem with the Simcha. We have to really try to focus on serving Hashem with joy. Okay, let's do a little bit further.
I
But
just wanted to add,
yes,
there's
please.
it's not just our generation has to work on Simcha. It's in all our, we learn about it. There's a reason that it's printed. There's a reason that we
Yeah,
have learned about it. There's a story
absolutely.
you told last week. Remember, first class, are you satisfied?
Yeah, it's a
Right,
great
like,
story.
That's why this is such an amazing story. Like they're in prison, they're in the worst possible conditions, and they need to find each other. And when Mendel asks Ramesh, "Are you satisfied?" He's separated from his family. He's separated from everything. He could be dead tomorrow. He could be not buried in a Jewish burial, like nothing. Yet, are you satisfied? And he answered yes. Like, to me,
Yeah.
that story is like,
What it's even greater is that's the first question. Like that's the question that that was amazing. These are Jews who are on a lofty level.
but
100%. Yes. This is an eternal Vedas Hashem to be b'simcha. So look at what he says. So he says, so even though simcha is not a mitzvah and depression is not a sin, but they're the foundations of everything that comes after that. He says, "V'hashar li'kones lehichali hatuma v'asitra achra hiya atzvos." So powerful. The gate to spiritual impurity, the gate to tumah, the gate to negativity is dejection, is sadness. Likewise, the gate to kedusha is happiness. We don't even think about it in those terms. But this is what he's saying. Omaran makubrim zuchus yangan alena omer la nashav be'es sara gedela. The Kubrina Rebbe, one of the early Hasidic masters, apparently the Jews, the community, I guess it was a time they were gathering, they were going through a communal sorrow, whatever was going on, a communal difficulty. And the Kubrina Rebbe told the community as follows: Im tischakzu v'tihiu b'simcha, if you'll strengthen yourselves and you'll approach this with joy, mavtiach ani lechem shetetzu l'ravacha makal iksin bishin. He says that I promise you, if you will have the right mindset, and this is something only a tzaddik could promise this, but he promised it. If you have the right mindset and you approach this current difficulty with joy, I promise you, he says, I promise you, that you will come out unscathed from any negativity. We will come out okay. But if you're going to be depressed, then who knows what's going to be the end? In other words, what he's telling them is something so powerful here. Something only a tzaddik could promise, but that our mindset actually could change reality. That there may be a decree milamayla, and that decree milamayla will only come upon us if we are dejected, if we're depressed, if we're atzuvim. But if we're tischasku, but if we strengthen ourselves, v'tiu b'simcha, and we approach this coming tragedy or this coming difficulty with joy in our hearts, then that itself will overturn the decree. Our mindset has the capacity to change reality. Hasimcha mimamtekes kol hadinim. And he says it explicitly because joy rectifies, refines, sweetens all of the severities, all of the supernal severities. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu. We say it on Motzi Shabbos. If you go out with simcha, you will come in peace. Through simcha teitseu, you will go out from all of the difficulties of life, from all of the painful situations. Simcha has the capacity to take us out of them. When you go out with simcha, through simcha, you go out of all life's difficulties. That you happen to be sunken. And you will be brought to shalom, to true joy, to true completeness. Simcha is what can bring us to the ultimate, to the wholesome, to whole goodness. This is the power of simcha. And this is why it's so important to be misameach chasen and kala. It's one of our mitzvahs, right? We go to chasenas. Why do we go to chasenas? Not to eat from the chicken dinner, not just to wish them mazel tov, but to rejoice with the chasen and kala, to dance with the chasen and kala. That's the mitzvah. Why is that such a mitzvah? They're happy. It's their day. Why do we have to make them happier? You know why? Because what do we wish the Chassan and Kala? We wish them a binyan adayad, because they are building now a new edifice, a new structure amongst the Jewish people. The family that they are building is a new structure. They're building a new edifice for Klal Yisrael. Simcha is the source of the world of building. Simcha is what builds. Simcha creates. Simcha builds. Sadness, depression destroys, destruction. He says, this is why we're Sameach Chassan and Kala, who Keilu Bana Achas Mechurvas Yerushalayim. It says, this is what it says in Masechtas Brachas. Somebody who is Sameach Chassan and Kala, it's as if he has rebuilt one of the Churban, one of the destroyed buildings of Yerushalayim, one of the destroyed shuls of Yerushalayim at the time of the Churban. Ki at Simcha Shor Shema Elam Abinyan, because joy is from Elam Abinyan. Joy is from the world of binyan. Somebody just sent a question. Learning to really play with children can teach model experiencing joy. Maybe we are children to Hashem, and the joy in Simcha feels like that playfulness. Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Susan. So he says, Simcha is the shorish of Elam HaBinyan, of the world of building. It is through Simcha that we are able to build spiritually. We're able to build physically our homes. And depression is from the world of destruction. That takes away from us spiritually. It destroys us spiritually. And so therefore, the power of giving joy to the Chassan and Kala in the beginning of when they are building their home, they're building their edifice. We are empowering them to build their edifice through giving them joy. Our joy is what brings them into the world of building. That is why it's so important to be Misameach Chassan and Kala. Livna is biased but Kedusha v'Tahara, because they are building a new home with holiness, with Tahara, with purity. And that's like when a Chassan and Kala are building their home, that's like rebuilding the Korban of Yerushalayim. We're rebuilding Klal Yisrael. And that's why we're so Misameach Chassan and Kala. We're so into rejoicing, because joy is building. Yerushalayim nikras masais kol haaretz. Yerushalayim is called the joy of the earth. The east of a Medrash Rabbah, Ki Yerushalayim lo hayim makam l'noigim ba'atzlos. And in fact, it says in the Medrash, Yerushalayim was so focused on joy, on building, that in the Medrash it says that they weren't supposed to be. There was a rule not to be depressed in Yerushalayim. And anybody had to make cheshbenis, financial cheshbenis, whatever it is that might lead to depression. There was a special room called the Kibbutz of Cheshbenis. It was outside the borders of Yerushalayim. You're going to be dejected. Stay out of Yerushalayim. And anybody that had to make cheshbenis that might bring them to calculations, that might bring them to dejection and depression, they had to go in the Kibbutz of Cheshbenis, in that room that was outside of Yerushalayim. In order that they shouldn't bring their dejection into Yerushalayim and be depressed in the holy city of Yerushalayim. Powerful. Kedusha and Simcha go together. Lefisha nikras and maslis kol haaretz, because Yerushalayim is called the joy of the world. And through our own depression, our own dejection, our own sadness, we actually damage the powerful Kedusha of Yerushalayim. So again, we're not talking about a medical issue that somebody suffers from, but we're talking about our own mindset.
Being in a bad mood.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine everybody in a bad mood had a place to go.
Exactly. And by the way, we know when someone's in a bad mood and they're sitting next to us or they're around us, we know it. It feels heavy. It doesn't feel so. So when we inject that into our Avodas Hashem, we're doing the whole opposite of what our Avodas Hashem is supposed to accomplish. We're supposed to bring, our Avodas Hashem brings down this powerful Kedusha, but our sadness and our depression, our dejection rejects it. Exactly. So, and again, the key is, well, when everything goes well, be in a good mood. That's easy. That doesn't take Avodah. The real Avodah of Simcha is dafka when things are not going well. And this is what he's going to say, if we can get to it. I don't know. So he quotes another, the earlier Slonim Rebbe in the Be'er of Ram, and he says as follows. This was in the essay that we learned last year. This Simcha bechelkai, sameach bechelkai, what rejoicing in my lot that Hashem gave me, it's sort of what we spoke about last week. That wherever you are is exactly where you need to be, what you need to have, where Hashem wants you. He says that is a midah klalius. That is an underlying foundation of all of our midas. And in a very real way, all of our midas tevas actually stem from that, stem from the capacity to be sameach bechelkai. The niflois he pu'ulas b'leva adam, and it's wondrous what this midah of sameach bechelkai, of rejoicing in your lot, what that brings to a human being's mindset and spirituality. It brings us not only to brachas in this world, brachas in the next world. And that also is what empowers us to be truly humble. All of these things, all of these great midas come from sameach bechelkai, rejoicing, having simcha in our portion, in the lot that Hashem gave us. And when a person lives with that joy, Hashem brings him close, and the chachamim are happy with us. That's exactly the mindset that a Jew is meant to live with. And this more than anything else brings us to a state of kedusha, to a state of tara, and we're spared from ego. All of this is from the underlying sameach bechelkai, recognizing that what I have is exactly what I'm meant to, what's meant for me. It helps us from jealousy, it helps us rejoice in other people's joy. And it helps us merit the powerful kedusha of the mitzvahs that we do. And it causes us to be beloved by others and by Hashem. And he brings all these empowered, these incredible midas. It spares us from anger. It spares us from being small-minded. It allows us to overlook things that others do to us. And it brings us to real tshuva. Ad kan l'shayna, all of these things just from being sameach bechelkai. Umidavarav hakadosh halalu, and from these holy words, yesh lirais, we could actually see shemidas hasimcha hi hamafteach l'kal sharia kedusha. That simcha is the key that unlocks the door of holiness, these hours and spiritual elevation. Shasameach bechelkai, va'evedas Hashem b'teich simcha. That somebody who is sameach bechelkai and he serves Hashem with that level of joy, niftachim lefanav kal shari kedusha v'shari ora. All the keys, all the gates of kedusha and the gates of light are opened up in front of him. So now the question is: so how do we do that? How do we achieve that simcha? We're going to talk about that a little bit now, and then we're going to do more next week in a whole Purim essay, where we're going to see within the details of Purim, we could extract from those details how to actually achieve real joy. But let's just do this one last piece over here, Ice Bays. Lifnei shenavi el abir eich masigim dargas hasimcha, and he says, in order to explain how we reach this level, aleinu reishis l'kveya, first we have to affix in our minds, simcha zu mahu mahusa, what is the simcha? What is real joy? Because everything we said up until now, how important it is, how great it is, how powerful it is, the fact that it's the key to all of the gates of holiness. So certainly, if we understand from what we learned up until this point, how powerful kedusha is, how powerful happiness is, how powerful simcha is, certainly it's not to be understood just, well, when I'm in a good mood. It doesn't just mean that. As many people think, so is that it's dependent on my mood. If I'm in a good mood, I'll be the simcha. I'm not in a good mood, I'm not the simcha. It doesn't mean that you're rejoicing when everything's going well. When everything's going well, when everything's going well, the fact that I'm happy, that wouldn't apply. All of the incredible, powerful things we said about simcha, clearly simcha is not just, well, when things are going well, I'm happy. Simcha means much more than that. It wouldn't be so powerful. It was so easy. He says, Ela simcha hi tefisa miyuchedes. Simcha is a unique mindset. It's not just when things are going well. It's not just when I'm in a good mood. Hi derech v'shita b'chaim. Simcha is a way of life. It's a way of life, whether I'm in a good mood or not in a good mood. Look what he's saying here. Simcha is not something that just comes easily. Simcha is actually something that we have to think deeply about. It's actually a way of life. It's a way to go through every period of life, both good and bad, both ups and downs. And it doesn't come axiomatically. It comes through my thoughts. My thoughts control my feelings. Powerful. There's a lot of Chabad Chassidus in here, even though this is from the Slonimer Rebbe, but there's a lot of relation. He says, so Simcha. He says, so Simcha comes. Simcha comes amongst this powerful thought. And it doesn't matter what matzav we are, what the conditions we're going through. Simcha is something that we happens through good times and bad times. There's no difference whether things are going well or things are not going well. Or if my mood is fitting for it or my mood's not fitting for it. That's not what Simcha is. Simcha is underlying in all times. So the question is, what is it? How do I achieve it? He says, and this is the source of it right here. It's a mindset. It's hisbeinus. And it takes real meditation. In other words, we have to really think about this to bring ourselves to joy. Makar hasimcha, the source of real simcha, hu sheyehudi sameach banhagas habayir yisparech shma itay, is recognizing that how Hashem conducts himself with me, what I am going through in life isn't a mistake, isn't just happenstance or unfortunate coincidence. But everything that I am going through is ultimately bringing me to exactly where I need to be. It's ultimately for my best. And this joy, this simcha of recognizing that everything that I'm going through in life, my current relationship difficulties, my current financial difficulties, my current difficulties with my children, my current difficulties at home, my current difficulties in my health, whatever it may be, is not just coincidence, but it's exactly directed up from above, milamaila, because it is bringing me exactly where I need to be. He says, this simcha comes from real thought. And it comes through a real feeling that Hashem I trust him and he's dedicated to me. He's devoted to my life. And I trust him. Therefore, everything that's happening is exactly what needs to happen. If I recognize, he says, this also comes from the recognition that Hashem is right here in my life. Not way out there, far removed from me, but Hashem's actually right here. Mashgiach alav lehetivimai. That Hashem has an intimate connection to every detail of my life. This is here the Nesiv Shalom is giving us the proper mindset that he's bringing us to bring us to Simcha. The recognition that every event that I go through is meant for me. That I trust Hashem, that he's devoted to me, that he's mashgiach alav lehetivimai, that he has an intimate connection to every detail of my life. And everything that happens to me is ultimately for the good. Even though whether I recognize and I feel the good, or whether I don't feel this is good particularly right now. This hurts me right now. It's painful right now. It's stressful right now. But even that recognition that ultimately is for my good. That is a lofty madrega, by the way. That's not easy to get there. When I'm going through it, when I'm going through the pain, to recognize that this is ultimately also for the good. But this is what we have. This is the mindset that we have to work on, because this is what is what empowers me and brings me to real simcha. This has to permeate our mindset. This amuna tahera v'zaka, this pure mindset, the kol mada avid rachmana ita, that everything that Hashem does with me, hakel l'tav of it, it's all ultimately for the good, even if I don't feel it right now. That is the underlying component behind simcha. So therefore, simcha is not just when things are going well; it's to the contrary. It's when things are not going well, when I'm in that pain, when I'm in that anxiety, when I'm in that stress, to understand that this was given to me for my good. That is a very high level to reach, but that is the ultimate underlying source of simcha. If we could switch our mindset, if we could put ourselves in that mindset, It's not easy to do. But in the month of Adar, we have a divine Nesinas Koyach. Hashem empowers us, fortifies us, gives us the strength to do it. That's our mission, Nichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha. Hashem helps us reach this level. This is what we're striving for in the month of Adar. It's not just fake joy. Well, I'll go out and buy myself something that makes me happy. That will make you happy temporarily. Here we're talking about changing a mindset that brings permanent happiness. This is Aveda, this is work. This is toil. This is effort.
You know, Rabbi, I'm thinking that,
Yes.
you know, I hear what you're saying. It's just really, it's confusing to me, and I just can't, it's hard to grasp. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, Hashem give this, 6, 7, 13 mitzvahs, 6, 20 mitzvahs, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's like Hashem's given a mitzvah that he doesn't want us to do. For example, having children. Some people are not having children. The Rabbi and the Rebbetzin are
Yeah.
having children.
Yeah.
So how do we come to terms with that? Like, here is a mitzvah to be fruitful and multiply, and Hashem saying, but I don't want you to do this mitzvah.
Yeah. I have lots of things with Hashem I don't know how to come to terms with. I have a hard time coming to terms with people who can't find their beshert, people who suffer. You know, why are children born with disease? I have a whole laundry list for Hashem that when I get up there, I have complaints about. So I have lots of complaints with Hashem. So but the point is that notwithstanding all of these issues, notwithstanding the fact that the pain is real and the sadness is real and the anguish is real, all of that is real. Notwithstanding that, the underlying recognition that everything that happens is ultimately for the good. That's what I'm saying. This is a real Aveda.
Would you say, instead of translating the word simcha as happiness or joy, which clearly it's not what you're getting at,
Right.
as more satisfaction, going back to the story that Nachami just, said, because Sameach B'Chelko is a satisfaction that what I have is what's meant for
It's
me.
a great translation. I would say it's a combination of all of those things, but yes, satisfaction is, there's no real one English
It's
word that
not-
translates
it's
simcha.
not just to be in a good mood. Or
Correct,
joyful. It's
correct,
not just
absolutely.
that, like I got something.
It's a much deeper inner tranquility and satisfaction is a very good word for it. All right, let's just finish off these last few lines. And now we can understand the meat of simcha is not just a small thing. It's a power. This is incredible. This is a real Aveda. This is why it's on such a lofty level. Such a powerful line, he says, from the Slonim Torahs. He says, when a Jew is satisfied the way that Hashem conducts himself with him, then Mida Keneged Mida, Makabel Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'ava Hanagasei Hu Eichshahu. Then Hashem will be satisfied with your conduct as well. Gam Imenu Kshur, even if it's not perfect. In other words, if you're satisfied with Hashem, if you're Sameach B'Chelkoi, that arouses Mida Keneged Mida, where Hashem overlooks the things that you feel. In other words, when you tell Hashem, well, listen, this isn't the way I wanted my life. This isn't exactly how I imagined it. This isn't perfect for me, and nevertheless I accept it. Then Hashem will look at you and say, even though you're not living exactly the way I imagine you to live as well, I'll accept that as well. It's a powerful Mida Keneged Mida. There are so many underlying important components behind Simcha. It's one of those things that we just don't really work on. We don't really think about, but we really have to put aside time and really put effort into really experiencing Simcha. And now is the time. Mishenichnas Adar, Shabbos Mevorchim Simcha, Shabbos Mevorchim Adar. This is the time. Okay, let's just finish off this last paragraph here. And with this clarity, Margish Yehudi Gam Be'es Sara Umetzuka. Even with this clarity, then even in times of difficulties, even in times of pain, the Jew will be able to feel Imoy Anochi B'Tzara. Like the pasuk says, Hashem is with us in our pain. But call Mashim is that everything that happens to us, even when we fall spiritually, even when I have my spiritual descent and my heart and my mind is numb and unfeeling, because I could still feel the closeness to Hashem if I live with this, that everything that happens to me, Hashem is with me. Because Hashem is with us in our spiritual anguish as well. We should never feel alone. Feeling alone is really, that brings us to depression and dejection. We should always recognize Hashem is right there with us. Even though I may be walking through the valley of the shadow of death, I won't fear. Why? Because you are with me. That is what I should feel, that Hashem is always with us. And through feeling that Hashem has that intimate connection to every detail of my life, that Hashem is ultimately in control, to everything that happens. But who tamid sameach, that will bring me to real joy. In other words, joy doesn't start in my heart. Joy starts in my mindset. Joy starts up here. Joy starts with my meditation. Joy starts with how I how I approach life, with how I think about Hashem. Joy starts with my intellectual understanding of my relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That is ultimately what brings joy. If I change the way I think, I can change the way I feel, and that ultimately changes the way I live. It changes my life. That's the power of joy. It's the underlying foundation to all of the mitzvahs that come after it. So, powerful idea, something to truly live by as we enter into the month of Adar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And Mirza Hashem will continue next week with our next few weeks with my Morim on Purim. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
joining.
Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you. Big, beautiful class today. Thank you, everybody. In person and on Zoom. Thank you. In person, we have a big class as well. Everybody's welcome to join in person.